Welcome. I'm Andrea Hobley, President of the League of Women Voters with Berry Cottage Grove area. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our program this evening with Lynette Anderson from Belwin Conservancy. For those of you unfamiliar with the League of Women Voters, we're a grassroots organization that has been in existence for over 100 years. We are a trusted source of nonpartisan voter education. Our program tonight is one of several educational programs that our league hosts every year. The League's mission is to encourage informed and active participation of citizens in government, work to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influence public policy through education and advocacy. I'd also like to share our nonpartisan policy. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always working on vital issues of concern to members and the public. And now I'd like to introduce our members who are facilitating this program this evening. Lynn Marcus, one of our league members and co-chair of the Environment Committee, who has had a long career in the environmental arena, and also Jody Ritaka, a member of our Environment Committee as well, and also a journalist who will be facilitating the questions at the end of the program. Please note that right now we have the Q&A turned off as well as the comments turned off, but we will turn on the comments again closer to the end of the program. So as you come up with questions, please make a note of them, remember them, and once the comments are turned on, you can go ahead and ask in the comments, and then we will ask those questions out loud so they're preserved for people who just listen to the recording at the end, and we want to make sure they get the same information. Thank you again for joining us this evening, and I'd like to turn it over to Lynn Marcus.
Lynette Anderson is the popular interpretive naturalist at Belwin Conservancy in Afton, Minnesota. She's endlessly fascinated, inspired, and wonderstruck by nature, and she loves to help people learn what we can all do to make a difference in our own behaviors to support nature. She probably doesn't want me to say she's renowned, but she is. She's renowned for her prairie buggy rides to see bison actively restoring the Belwin Conservancy prairie, and for her daytime and nighttime walks to enjoy frogs, birds, prairies, and the other habitats at Belwin. Lynette began presenting nature programs at Belwin Conservancy in 2000 as a teacher for the St. Paul Public Schools, and she began doing restoration work in 2008. As a St. Croix River Valley resident since 1987, she combines her local knowledge with her passion for education about all of our plant and animal friends. Lynette obtained her degree from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point in resource management and environmental education, and she's been engaged in teaching on the trail ever since. Lead on, Lynette.
Oh, thanks, Lynn. I'm so happy to be here with y'all tonight. Like Lynn said, I've been working at Belwin Conservancy since 2000, and it's a love affair for me. I think Belwin Conservancy is an amazing entity, and so much good stuff going on there. So I'm going to be really happy to share with you tonight a little bit about what Belwin is, what we do, and where we're going. So I think I'm going to share my screen now. Is that true? Yes? All right. All right. So as Lynn said, I am a naturalist, and so that means I lead walks and talks on anything that has to do with nature. I also do a lot of the restoration work at Belwin, and that means I drive tractors and run chainsaws and do all the stuff out in the field as well. And I love it all. Belwin is a beautiful mosaic of many different things, habitat types and partnerships. And so hopefully I'll touch on all of those things tonight. I think we'll have some Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, write them down, and I'm happy to answer them at the end. And we'll just get started. So Belwin is located roughly 20 minutes east of St. Paul. And if depending on where you are in Woodbury, it can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 15 minutes away, just north of Afton. A little bit more of a bird's eye view. If you look to the far right of your screen, that's the St. Croix River with Lakeland in the upper right and Afton down in the lower right, Woodbury to the far left. And Belwin has 8 non-contiguous parcels, roughly 1,500 acres. There's a little parcel down to the left of your screen. It's right near the legend, and that's our most recent acquisition. It's called our Valley Creek Bluff Management Area. We just acquired that in the last year, and that is really exciting for us. It's got some really interesting goat prairie habitat and some riparian Valley Creek area right up to the creek. So at some point, we're hoping that will be available for public picnicking and what have you, but not today, but sometime soon. I just wanted to draw your attention to that and know that Belwin's working on land over there. So the Belwin that we know and love today really started with this love of nature or love of conservation that was laid down into Charlie Bell. Charlie Bell and his wife, Lucy Winton Bell, were the founders of Belwin, a combination of their last names. And Charlie Bell's dad was James Ford Bell. So if you're familiar with the James Ford Bell Museum of Natural History, that's this guy right here, the older guy that's balding in the left-hand picture. That's James Ford Bell. And he was the CEO who created General Mills. And he was an ardent conservationist as well as a brilliant businessman. He loved to fish, but most importantly, he loved to hunt waterfowl. And when he noticed that the canvasback duck population was dropping, he did a lot to try and research what was happening with that population and other duck populations as well, and created a research station that's still going today up in Manitoba, Canada. His son, Charlie Bell, on the left in that left-hand picture, picked up that conservation ethic and that love of the natural world, and he became a very ardent fly fisherman. When he became CEO, he and his wife Lucy were living in Wayzata, and they wanted to find a place where they could move to outside of the city life, where they could go to retreat with their family. And what they were looking for was a place with pine trees, particularly white pine, running water, so a stream or a creek or something along those lines, and less than 2 hours from Wayzata. A lot of their counterparts were heading up to Ely and Brainerd and points north along the North Shore. They wanted to be a little closer so that they didn't have to spend a lot of time in the car getting there. They wanted to just get there and be there. So they landed on this place in Afton, Minnesota. This is the confluence of the Valley Creek, and the north and south branch come together on this particular property that they bought. So you can see they got their running water. Oops, sorry. They have their pine trees in the background, and it's just a lovely, it's about 65 acres that the family still owns. When they were out there on the weekends and when they would come for vacations, Charlie Bell would walk the land and find pieces of property that were for sale, an acre here or 10 acres there or 5 acres here, and he would buy it up. He was really concerned about protecting the water quality of the Valley Creek and also cognizant of the fact that development was pushing in, and this was back in the 50s. So Woodbury was not the Woodbury that we know today. Development wasn't pushing east as fast, but he kind of had a sense that this was going to happen. And so he wanted to protect the land, the habitats, and the, like I say, the water quality of the Valley Creek, being the ardent fly fisherman that he was. So his wife and his daughter, you can read here on the screen, kept saying, "What are you going to do with all of this property?" And he said, most importantly, "I don't know, but I just know that it's got to be saved. I know that someday this land, this close to a metropolitan area, is going to be important to keep in a natural way." And that set the stage for the Belwin that we know today. So here's a map of all the parcels that Belwin owns. Again, about 1,500 acres now, but the original property was down here at the bottom of this map. You can see that dark blue that says Education Center. And right below that is a green, odd shaped, not a rectangle, but kind of, that has a stream running through it. And that green with the stream is the original Bell property. That's the property that they bought when they came to put their cabin on. And then the Education Center, that blue area, that's all the property that Charlie bought when he would go out on his walking forays, talking to neighbors, meeting them, finding out if they were interested in selling, and then buying up those properties. So that's about 265 acres. And that's the land that his wife and daughter asked him about. What are you going to do with all of this? And he said, I don't know, but it's got to be saved. So he and his wife, Lucy, had a lot of conversations with their friends who were also doing great things in the environmental world. Three Rivers Park District, Clifford French, who is part of that, was also buying land and had a conservation mindset. And so all around the Twin Cities, different peers of Charlie Bell's were buying land, creating programs or creating nature centers. And Charlie didn't really want to create a nature center, but he wanted to teach education, nature education, to young people. So he found a gentleman from St. Paul Public Schools named Rod Fry, who was a high school biology teacher and wanted to bring his students to an off-site place to teach out of doors, which was a novel thing at the time, back in the late 50s, middle 60s. And so Charlie entered an agreement with the St. Paul Public Schools, built the building that you see here on that education property. And in 1971, the first busload of kids pulled up. And here you can see Charlie Bell and his wife, Lucy Winton Bell, on the left, with the assistant superintendent of St. Paul Public Schools signing their agreement to create what then was called the Belwin Outdoor Education Laboratory. You can see those initials on that little podium there. And that was a pretty great thing to have happen. And now, 52, 53 years later, that partnership is still going strong. Every single day of the school year, St. Paul Public school kids come to Belwin to have a day of outdoor learning. The picture on the right is Charlie Bell, his daughter, Lucy Hartwell, and her son, Charlie's grandson, David Hartwell. And that legacy of loving nature passed from James Ford Bell to Charlie Bell. And Charlie instilled that same love of nature to his daughter, Lucy, who was a behind the scenes champion for environmental education for the school kids. She did a lot to help fund that program. And his grandson, David, he took David under his wing and taught him an awful lot about bird watching and fly fishing, and just having that conservation mindset and ethic that's so important. So in 1971, the first crew of kids come to Belwin to learn, and it's an all-day outdoor experience. This is one of the original instructors, Bruce Albrecht, and he is still substitute teaching there once in a while, which is amazing, 50 years later. This is some of the students today. They're out there planting pollinator gardens. So the curriculum over time, of course, has changed, and it's they do their very best to bring in just all the really good learning that students need to have a good ecological background. So we know that pollinators have become really a big topic of conversation and something that we all aspire to help. We plant pollinator gardens, and things like that. And so that learning is translated to the students, and here they're planting some of their native plants that they've gotten in the rain, even because of the raincoats. On that same property is a small observatory. In 2010, the Minnesota Astronomical Society approached Belwin for a site to put this observatory. There wasn't really a place close to the Twin Cities on the south side that had a dark enough sky. And when they did their looking around, they came to Belwin and found that that was pretty good. There wasn't a lot of city light coming in, taking away that dark sky view. And so they built this beautiful observatory. And the partnership with St. Paul really kind of set the template for all of our other partnerships. So Belwin provides all of the infrastructure. So we built the building, we created the trails, we maintain the trails, we do the heating and the water and the electricity in the building, and we cover all of those infrastructure costs and needs. And then the entity that we partner with provides all of the stuff that they need. So for example, St. Paul provides all the teaching staff, and they also provide all the teaching materials. Now with the Minnesota Astronomical Society, we're providing the land, and we provide the little trail system that they have there, but they actually paid for the building and built that beautiful building. And inside it is this telescope. It's one of two 10-inch refracting telescopes. It's the newer of the two. And what's great about this is they have star parties, so the public can come to view Venus or different celestial happenings. When we have our evening events, there's always somebody on site there to help us look through the telescopes and tell us what's going on. And then during the day, they do have solar filters for these telescopes so that the students can also go in there and be exposed to this beautiful technology and the wonder of looking at the sky. It's just such a great partnership. I love it. So David Hartwell, Charlie's grandson, avid birder, loves to bird, took up the mantle when his grandpa couldn't anymore. And he did the same thing that his grandpa did. He walked the land, he talked to landowners, he looked for land that was for sale. He also was aware of the development coming in from all sides, really, and the importance of protecting native spaces for the critters and the plants that live there. That's first and foremost for him, which is really an honorable thing. And so because of David, Belwin's land holdings went from that original roughly 265 acres of the education property to what we have now, which is right around 1,500. So the Stagecoach Prairie Natural Area that you see on the map there is one of our most popular hiking areas. There's about 6 miles of trail. We have the Bison Prairie just a little bit north of that. We host a bison herd there every year. North of that is the Lucy Winton Bell Athletic Fields. That's another partnership that we have. And then to the west is Savannah Hills, and that's an oak savanna. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And down at the far right of your screen is an area that you see that says Oxbow Trails. And that's our newest public hiking area, which we're having a grand opening on Thursday. So mark your calendars and come on out. You might see Lynn and Howard Marcus there. That's a really cool, it's a small property. It's only about 17, I think it's 17 acres with 1.25 miles trail, but it goes along the Valley Creek, and there's some nice marshland and floodplain in the back of it. So because of David, he helped acquire this property to keep Belwin moving forward, to protect and restore those native habitats that are so important. So this is a map of two things, the Lucy Winton Bell athletic fields. So at the beginning, I said Belwin was kind of a mosaic. It's a mosaic of habitat types, and it's a mosaic of partnerships. And I think the way that they do their partnerships is just so beautiful, providing infrastructure. And then working with other groups that also encourage people to get out and enjoy the natural world. So the Minnesota Astronomical Society, get out and enjoy the night sky. St. Paul Public Schools, just get out and learn about nature. The Lucy Winton Bell athletic fields came about when two entities, St. Croix Soccer Club and the St. Croix Valley Athletic Association, were looking for a place to have some kind of an athletic facility. There was a call for that in Washington County, and they entered into talks with Belwin, and it ended up that right off of Hudson Road, there was an area that was pretty flat. It was former farmland. Belwin bought that and then worked with those other athletic entities to create the ball fields. So from spring through late fall, there's soccer, baseball, and football that go on up there. Probably right around maybe 100,000 people pass through there over the course of those 3 months in a given year. So it's very well used. A lot of tournaments happen up there. And then just to the south of the ball fields, you can see that there is the yellow that's restored prairie, and then the green to the far right is a pine forest. And we have about 3 miles of trail there. It's relatively flat, but it's a great prairie restoration, tall grass prairie restoration with lots of beautiful grasses and forbs and lots of bird life in there. That's where we have our labyrinth. You can see that kind of up at the top of the map there. It's just a little 3-circuit labyrinth, but it's really fun to walk. And then, so on this picture, you can see where the ball fields are kind of in the middle of this slide. And then down below the ball field is some farm buildings and then a big open space. And that's where our bison hang out. So we have a partnership with North Star Bison out of Rice Lake, Wisconsin. And every year they bring a herd, well, for the last 16 years, this is our 16th year, they bring a herd of 2-year-old male bison to the Belwin Prairie to help us with some of our restoration goals, and also for those bison to spend the summer grazing. They're a production herd. So they do go back to North Star in September or October, and they're humanely butchered and then made into meat products, hamburger and steaks and what have you. North Star is an amazing family business. And if you want to Google them, it's northstarbison.com, I think. Their motto is good for the land, good for the animal, good for the people. So they're practicing kind of this new idea called regenerative agriculture. And it's really about the soil, and it's about taking care of the animals. And I just think they're an amazing family and an amazing business. And I'm really happy that Belwin is involved with them because they do some great things. And then we get to have these amazing creatures that are native to the prairie. They're the last piece in a restoration effort. They're roaming out there all summer long, doing their good things that they do for a prairie, and people have an opportunity to come and see them. We have a really fun release or festival every year. This year, I think we had right around 1,000 people show up for our Bison Festival. It's a nanosecond event. They back the truck in. You can hear them jostling around in the truck, and then they throw open the doors, and then the thundering herd comes out, and they look at the crowd, and then they run to the farthest ends of the prairie. It's pretty amazing, but it's very heart pounding, and everybody has a smile on their face, and it's a very joyful thing. So if you didn't make it this year, try to come next year. Third weekend in May every year, the Bison Festival at Belwin. This is our finished 25-foot high bison viewing tower. So you can walk out onto the tower and you can pretty much see the bison almost everywhere if you're on top of the tower. There's a couple places where they can get out of sight, but for the most part, regardless of where they are, you can see them. We also have this custom made machine. This is our bison buggy, and we take tours out into the prairie where we can get pretty close to the bison. And a lot of times we just get out into the prairie. We stop the vehicle, we turn it off, and we just sit with the bison. And it's the most amazing experience. You'd think that they're very loud because they're big creatures, but they're very quiet. And it's just so therapeutic to sit out there and hear the birds and the insects and watch these big creatures just be at peace with the land. It's an amazing experience. And you can kind of get that from the tower or the platform when you're watching them. But when you're on that buggy and you're up close with them, it's a really cool thing. Like I said, they are a production herd. So they're usually 2-year-old males, and they come in at about 700 pounds, and they put on anywhere from 150 to 200 pounds over the course of the summer. So by the time they leave, they're looking like finely tuned athletes. I would encourage all of you to go for a visit. It's a really fun thing. If you go to the Belwin website and click visit, then you can get an address and go and check them out. We have some newer partnerships that I'm really proud of. So like many entities, Belwin has a land acknowledgement, and the Wapakute Dakota people were the ones that were on land that Belwin now owns, pre-European arrival. And we have, so we have a land acknowledgement, as many places do, and I think that's really important. And I'm so proud of Belwin because now we have taken a next step and actually created relationships with 2 Native American or indigenous groups. The first being the American Indian Family Center out of St. Paul. They were looking for a place to build a sweat lodge, and that's what you see here in this slide, this green structure, so that they could perform some of their healing ceremonies and bring their people out to learn about their cultural practices. And we said, of course, and we found a site that worked for them and for us. And when we first started at this particular site, which is on that education property, you can see this is obviously a winter picture, but the ground is very dry and it's pretty rocky, and the sweat lodge is there. And you can see the rocks out in front. That's where they have their fires, where they heat up the rocks that go into the sweat lodge when they're having their ceremonies. And we worked with the St. Paul American Indian Family Center community to create this beautiful space out of that very rocky space. So all of those screened circles in the back there are protecting red twig dogwood from deer and rabbits. That's the sacred plant that they use the inner bark from to create their kinnikinnick, or their sacred tobacco. The wood chips in the front are protecting prairie sage and prairie rose, some pale purple coneflower, and a few other plants, but it's the sage and the prairie rose that are some of their sacred plants that they use in their ceremonies. And then you can see to the left and to the right, there are also some wire screenings with actual trees in them, and those are the white cedar that they use a lot in their ceremonies for healing. what I really like about these partnerships and what I think is really wonderful, we have a great volunteer corps, which I'll talk about in a little bit. They, together with some of the folks from the Native communities, we worked together to create this new landscape, and it's changing all the time and getting just better and more lush and more beautiful. And the beautiful thing about that is we all get to learn from each other. So Belwin, again, is providing the space, they're providing the land, they're providing infrastructure. You can see the watering that's going on there. And the Native communities are bringing their knowledge and their traditions, and we are able to learn from them and work with them, which I think is just terrific. So going above and beyond having a land acknowledgement, which is terrific in and of itself, but really putting into action the support for these communities that really need support. This year at our Bison Festival, the American Indian Family Center brought one of their teepees and set it up. And so people had an opportunity to go in and learn about that. That was incredible. It was incredible to watch them put it up. And this is a smaller teepee. And this is with the other group of Native Americans that we have a partnership with, the Anishinaabe Academy out of Minneapolis. We have, I think it's an 11-acre site off of St. Croix Trail, and that is our Anishinaabe Academy site. So they will be bringing school students out there. We're just in the kind of the very beginning stages of working with the site. So again, we're doing some restoration. The land behind this teepee was kind of old field up until last year. And then we started turning that over into native prairie. We did a lot of clearing of the buckthorn and whatnot from the trees in the background there, and that'll become a nice pine walkway for them. They're in the process of creating their Three Sisters gardens, the corn, beans, and squash, along with other edible plants. They're going to create a medicine wheel sacred garden on part of the site, and they'll be bringing the youth out to learn in nature, learn all these things that are so important for all of us to know. And they'll be sharing their cultural traditions as well. So I think it's just really great that we have two entities that we get to support and learn from. And isn't that what it's all about? Just learning from each other. And speaking of learning, we have some relationships with universities where some of the folks come out here. They're doing some plant research. We have some water quality monitoring that happens. I know Lynn and Howard are some of the water quality monitors that come out to Belwin and take water samples and do some testing. This is an overlay of all of the land that Belwin owns with pre-European arrival habitat types. So the light brown was prairie. The dark brown was oak barrens or oak savannas or oak openings. And then the green at the bottom was the big woods. And you can see that Belwin has landscapes or habitats that are in each of those. And so when we decide on how we're going to move forward restoring a site, we look at a map like this. We also look at surveyor notes from the past. We look at biological survey maps. We look at species maps that have come from when Belwin acquired the property. We do a lot of thinking about what was there. We look at what's there now, and then we think about what is coming in the future, which is climate change. And at this point, in terms of adaptive restoration practices, we're mostly just staying aware of what's going on our lands, what's changing. There's a lot of conversation going on about how to restore properties given the fact that our climate's getting hotter. And we believe that our landscapes will adapt. We don't, let's see, when we buy a seed mix for a property, we might look for seeds that have a little more tolerance of drought-like conditions. We might look for seeds or plants where we're in more of that have a more southerly range that will be moving north. So we are doing some of those things to, help our native habitats adapt and change to the changes that are coming because of climate. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of research, and it's a lot of learning and adapting. How do you recreate a landscape that you never saw? A lot of these lands were corn and soybean fields when we came on the scene, and the real prairies have been gone for a long time. So to recreate those and bring them back to a really resilient, dynamic place again, I just think it's fascinating and rewarding, and can be frustrating, but ultimately just so gratifying when you see the birds and the insects and the small mammals and the reptiles that come back and inhabit those places. This is kind of what we're dealing with when we're doing restoration. So the right-hand side of your slide is nothing's been done there. That's all buckthorn, honeysuckle, stuff we don't want. And the left-hand side is where we've done the clearing. So the left-hand side looked exactly like the right-hand side. This happens to be from our Savannah Hills site. And that was, according to the maps that we've looked at, part of an oak barren complex or an oak savanna complex. And oak savannas differ from a woodland because there's less canopy cover. So oak savannas have roughly 10 to 40% canopy cover. So there's lots of opportunity for sunlight to come through and hit the soil, and different plants can grow with that kind of dappled sunlight coming through. Woodlands have far greater canopy cover, and the plants that grow underneath have to be more shade tolerant. So, so we're restoring this to oak savanna, and it's looking pretty good. The way we do our work, we have a whole toolbox of stuff that we use to do our work. One of the things that we use is mechanical stuff. So these are 3 blades, and here my intrepid colleagues and I are out in the bison prairie, and we're taking on white sweet clover, which was brought over by the Europeans as an excellent forage plant for cows, but really horrible in a prairie. It's highly invasive. Boy, given a chance, it just takes over. So we go out there with these 3 blades and cut down a lot of the sweet clover, and that way we can leave a lot of the rest of the prairie intact. We also do a lot of hand pulling. We have a whole volunteer corps that comes out and helps us get rid of invasive plants. This is a truckload of Grecian foxglove, which is also a very tenacious, aggressive, invasive plant, and also toxic. It has digoxin and digitalis, both of which are compounds that are used in heart medications, come from this plant. So it's pretty toxic. Volunteer corps, so many opportunities to volunteer at Belwin. I do a lot of the land work with the volunteers. So on the far left here, we're putting up some fencing around a little bird sanctuary where we did a lot of native plantings. The The fencing on the bottom is to keep the rabbits out, and the fencing on the top is to keep the deer out. So far, so good. And then on the right, you can see a group of volunteers. We've been hand pulling spotted knapweed, and they all have smiles on their faces. So they're doing good work and they're having fun, which is a bonus. And then down below, there's a couple of volunteers collecting seed, which is a really popular event in the fall. It's just one of the most therapeutic things I think you can do, is to get out in a prairie and be by yourself and just collect some seeds. It may not sound all that great, but boy, it is wonderful. So this is just some of the work. This is really the work that Belwin does. We work to bring back native habitats, and you can see the tower on the left on each of these pictures and the difference between the top and the bottom. And that's the work that we do. We create wild spaces for red-headed woodpeckers. We do some bird monitoring, and we have really great things going on. We have hooded warblers that are nesting on our sites. They're a species of special concern. We have red-shouldered hawk, also a species of special concern. Blanding's turtles, species of special concern in Minnesota. These are some of the plants: kitten tails on the left, puccoon on the top, bottle gentian on the right. Prairie gentian on the right, green milkweed and hepatica. All of these plants are able to survive and thrive because of the work that Belwin does. This is a pasque flower, one of my favorites. And these are some of the birds. There's the Henslow sparrow on the top, and the tree swallow, American kestrel in the middle, and the bluebird on the bottom. We can find all of those at the Stagecoach Prairie. These are up in the Bison Prairie or the Tall Grass Trails Prairie, the meadowlark with the yellow breast, the dickcissel with the blue background, eastern kingbird on the top, and again, the kestrel and the bison. All of these creatures have a place to be because of Belwin's work. And that's a view of our oak savanna, looking out on Lake Edith. And that's really what I have. So, any questions?
Well, I'll step in here at this point. This is Jody Rataka, and I'm with the Woodbury Cottage Grove League of Women Voters, and to help facilitate some of the questions as they come in. So much great information, so much, and where to go and things like that. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of the things where how critical the bison are for helping into the improve and restore the prairie. Why are the bison so, even more so than what you were telling us about it?
So the bison are what we call a keystone species. If they're not there, a lot of things don't happen in the prairie. We love to have the bison there because for several reasons. They wallow, which means they get down on their side and they wiggle around, and they make these depressions in the soil where one wallows, they all wallow. It becomes a bare spot in the prairie. And because they're all lying down there and they're heavy animals, they compress the soil and create a place where rain can be after a rain event. And then that soil holds the water there so that birds and insects, small mammals and reptiles can come and have a water source to get to, because like a desert, prairies have a limiting factor of water. We also have the soil enrichment from their dung. They spread seeds around. When they collect the seeds on their fur and the fur drops off, their seeds get dispersed, which helps keep the biodiversity of the prairie going. their little feet, when they walk, they have little ridges inside their toes, so they're helping to aerate the soil. They're just amazing.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, that's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that that you have the Bison Festival that happened last month, but people can come back next year and take part of it. And you have the tower as well.
Yep.
And how can they just book a time to go there? Is it open certain hours or
It's
around the
open
year?
sunrise to sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Sunrise to sunset, you can go to the platform in the tower and see the bison any day of the week. That's just always open to the public.
And you said that goes from the spring until the fall when they.
Yep, from May 20th
Mhm.
through the end of September.
You know that the habitat restoration is key to healthy, the habitat, the air, the water in the St. Croix Valley. Can you tell us a little bit more why that is so key to that healthy habitat? The restoration of the habitat in the prairie.
Well, I think the key to health, is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
If you have a healthy habitat, you have a dynamic, thriving system. And that means that you have a lot of parts in that system. And the more parts that you have, the stronger your system will be, just like a spider's web. And so if we have healthy, thriving, dynamic habitats around us, that means our air quality will be better, our water quality will be better. We'll have spaces to go where we can take care of our own mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And I think that's really important. And the St. Croix River Valley is so blessed to have, of course, the St. Croix River running through, but so many places where they're protecting green spaces, which is just really imperative for human health, I think, anyway.
great information. We have one question wondering how the ways that our local community can support the Belwin's mission in addition to directly volunteering at the site and financial support.
Well, you can spread the word that we're out there doing good work. We are a donor-supported local nonprofit. We do get grant funding, and we have an endowment. But any donor support would be terrific. Come to our events, learn about us. Come to our workshops, learn about the critters that we share this area with, and come to learn about what you can do in your yard to help promote pollinators or protect the frogs, or just come to us and learn more and experience what it's like to be out in the natural world. That would be my invitation.
I love that. Great invitation. Can you talk a little bit about the music in the trees and the performances of the gospel singers?
Yeah, that's
by the
coming up.
month?
That's coming
Yeah.
up in August, and that's a phenomenal event where we put musicians 15 feet high in pine trees, and they perform on a variety of different instruments, or they sing. And it's a wonderful event. It's held at our education site, and come to that. Come and be inspired by these amazing musicians and the sounds that fill this beautiful pine forest.
Oh, I can almost hear it right now. I wish I could hear it right in person. So sounds fantastic. You talked about the climate change and that there's things that perhaps we could be doing with seeds and things. What advice would you give for us, what we can be doing to help restore the natural nature and the natural habitat in our own neighborhood, in our own backyard?
I would say, create areas in your yard that are just wild. Like, let there be a brush pile in a corner. Do your own composting of leaves and lawn clippings and things like that. Plant a little patch of native plants. Go to a place like Outback Nursery down in Hastings and buy plants that have a little more tolerance to drought and hotter temperatures. Like, there's great people around that can help you find that out. Especially, I do a lot of my shopping at Outback, So a shout out to Outback Nursery in Hastings. They have a great plant selection, and there's a lot of stuff out there. Black-eyed Susans are one that you can plant, and they'll be just joyful and happy to show you their blossoms. And they're, so they're a drier, loving plant. So there are many things you can do. You just have to start. Choose to start.
Sounds great. Also, what programs and sites do you have that are friendly to families and children? Or families with children, I should say. Yes.
We run some programs through the St. Paul Community Education. You can check their website. We do programs like my frog walks are all family friendly. Bird hikes are all family friendly. Prairie walks, all family friendly. And all of our sites have just really well-maintained trails that are amenable for toddlers running down the trail up to, families. Dogs are allowed on 2 of our sites on leash. Very important that they stay on leash. But, so we do try to offer something for everybody.
And you talked a little bit about the partnership with the Native residents and the Native Americans and that. Tell us a little bit more about how us watching, how we can learn a little bit more about the work that's going on there and what is open to the general public.
In terms of those entities or those groups, there's not much that's open to the public right now. But when I do programs there, I can walk people through their site and talk about what they're doing and relay information that they've given to me. I think at some point we'd like to maybe do some programming for the public to help everybody understand more about the culture and what they're doing and some of their ceremonies. And I'd say just in your own world, do some research find out about the Wapakute people who were here in Washington County, find out about the Dakota people, go to the Afton History Museum. They've got some stuff there. Learn about some of the plants that were important to them, like the prairie sage or the white cedar. There's just so much to know. It's great. There's so much to know.
And what would be some other things that we can learn from the birds and from the prairie that we can all do to make a difference in our own behaviors to support nature? What would be some things?
We can learn things that we can learn from the plants and animals in nature is to remember to just be. We can just take time to just stand and listen and look. And if you plant something in your yard, like one milkweed plant, and you see the monarch come and lay her egg, and then the caterpillar emerges, I think because we are all a part of nature, nature is what makes us what we are. We forget that we have that connection. And so I think anytime that we can be with nature, which is what Belwin wants to do, they want to create opportunities for people to be in nature. Anytime we can stop ourselves and listen and look, then we return to that place of being a part of that whole food web, that whole thing, this whole beautiful thing that's called the natural world. And we are part of it. We are not apart from it. We are a part of it. And I think it's really great to just be reminded of that and remember that, take it in. And then, that's for me, when I do that, that results for me in just such a sense of calmness and rightness and contentedness. Then I can go on with my day. And, those problems that seemed so big before, well, I've been able to breathe some clean air and listen to the birds. Maybe they're not quite as daunting as I thought.
Wow, that is fantastic. Really good advice for all of us. Yeah, just to get back into nature. I'm curious, you're passionate about this. How did you get involved in this? And why did you get involved in this?
I grew up on a farm in southern Wisconsin, and I've been running around in nature ever since I was a little girl. I went to school in Stevens Point, didn't have a clue about what I was going to do, found their College of Natural Resources, got involved with some friends there. And that was just it. I just knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I've been teaching on the trail since 1979. And for whatever else has not been going well in my life, my work, it's never been a job for me. It's always been my work. That has just been my work, to teach people about nature on the trail in the natural world.
And what an amazing place to there. You know,
Yes.
with everything that's available. You touched briefly about, and I don't know if I got the name of it, but the Valley Creek with the goats that you mentioned that is not open yet, but what can you tell us a little bit about what's going to be going there?
Well, so we're going to do some stream restoration work. We're going to take out the invasives and plant some native trees. And then we'll probably be restoring what's called a goat prairie up top. And it's called a goat prairie because the angle of the slope is so steep. And believe me, it's like almost a 90-degree. Wow, it's so steep. Only the goats can get in there. And we'll use them. Hopefully, we're thinking that's one of our strategies, is to maybe get goats in there in the next year or two to eat back the buckthorn and the other invasives, and then work with getting the natives going.
Yeah, I've heard that. So that sounds like a really good idea. Do you provide binoculars and other equipment for?
I do. When I do my programs, I have binoculars and other kinds of things available.
And you said that you do talks and walks, and how can someone get involved with that? That might
You
be
can go to our
interesting.
website. Yep, go to our website and just hit events, the button that says events, and then you can scroll down and there's a list of stuff that's going on. You can sign up and come on out. I'll be happy to see you.
And anything further about the volunteer corps, how they can get involved with that?
Same thing. You can go to the website and click the volunteer button and come on out. We would love to have you.
Well, we're just about out of time. Just final comments for those listening and joining us. Oh, are you still with us, Lynette? I don't see her. I will toss this back to Lynn or to Andrea then.
Well, I can wrap us up. How about that? It looks like Lynette may have lost her internet connection or something. Well, I wanted to thank Lynette again for sharing with us about Belwin and all of the wonderful work of the Conservancy. I know I lived in the area for a long time and I didn't know most of that information. So it's really, good to get to know what's going on in our local area and, places we can visit and volunteer at. Also, thanks to Lynn Marcus and Jody Ritaka for facilitating our program tonight. And thanks to you. Oh, Lynette's coming right back on. Hi, Lynette. We were just gonna
Sorry.
wrap it up, but if you
I'm
had
so
any
sorry,
final comments.
My
Go ahead.
computer just wigged out on me, so now I'm on my phone. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Did you want to ask the final question again, Jody, and then I can wrap us up?
Yeah, just some final comments, Lynette, again, for those listening, watching, to where they can get more information about all of this wonderful organization.
They can go to belwin.org, BELWIN, belwin.org. And it's a pretty user-friendly website. You can find out about events that we have going on. You can find out about the volunteering that we have going on. You can find out about work that we're doing. It's pretty great website. So I hope you all visit that, and I hope everybody comes to an event or comes to help volunteer or whatever you want to do. Come out and visit Belwin. It's a beautiful place.
Well, it's really been our pleasure to have you with us this evening. So thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I have enjoyed this thoroughly, and just thank you so much.
Such an honor. So now I will toss it back to Andrea for some final comments. Thank you
Okay.
again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again so much, Lynette. I already kind of started saying thank you to everyone, so I'll pick up where I left off. I wanted to also thank our viewers for attending the program. And I wanted to let people know that if you want to share this with other people, that it will be available on the League of Women Voters Woodbury Cottage Grove area YouTube channel, and also on our local cable channel, SWCTC. I have just a few other announcements before we say goodbye. We'd like you all to visit us, the League, at various summer events, festivals going on over the summer. This month in June, we'll be at Strawberry Fest in Cottage Grove and Woodbury's Juneteenth. And then later in the summer, you will find us at Woodbury Expo, St. Paul Park Heritage Days, and Newport Pioneer Days. We'll have a table at all of these events, so come on out and say hi. And then also, please mark your calendars for our candidate forums in September. The candidate forums are one of our most important programs and a great way to learn about your candidates before voting in November. This year, we have 2 forums, both on Tuesdays, September 12th, St. Paul Park Mayor and City Council, and September 19th, South Washington County School District, which is ISD 833, for school board. Both programs will also be rebroadcast and available to watch later. I also want to note we really rely on questions submitted by the community. It's very important that we're asking questions at our forums that the community about things the community is interested in and concerned about. So if you'd like to submit questions for the forums, you'll be able to find information about how to do that on our website, lwvwcg.org. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Good night.